The BKFC is coming to Australia, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down what to expect from this huge blockbuster move, some potential fighters that could feature on the card, possible venue locations, and a whole lot more. And basically, what this means for the future of Australian combat sports. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today in this video. My name is Josh Beatel. We're going to be looking, as I said, at the blockbuster move that the BKFC Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship announced last Wednesday that they will be bringing a show to Australia. Let's have a look at the post that I'm talking about here. So obviously, it's a blockbuster move from the BKFC organization to go global. They're already have had some shows overseas in Marbella, Spain. I believe in Italy they had one as well, or they're looking to have one. This is a post that was put up by David Feldman, the president of the BKFC. So yeah, they've got a photo of Sydney here in the image. To me, it looks like if you're going to put a photo of Sydney, you could sort of imagine that it's going to be in Sydney. Sydney and Perth really have become the two major players in combat sports and sort of combat sports events in Australia. That's really the only two destinations that are getting the bulk of these fight cards across multiple disciplines, boxing, bare knuckle, and the UFC. Brisbane and Melbourne sometimes get the boxing. We've got a card, a no limit card on March 1st. Sometimes the Gold Coast gets some boxing, but for the majority, there's a big matchroom boxing card in Sydney next month. The talk at the moment is between, I think, Sydney and Perth, from what I've heard, which makes sense considering the arena sizes and everything else, and just the willingness from the government, those governments, state governments, to fund combat sports and put that money out there to bring out these guys, to bring those big promotions over here. Obviously, as well, Perth had the WWE last year, Elimination Chamber. That was in February of last year. They had UFC 284 in 2023 rather. UFC 305 last year, and then Sydney's had 293, UFC 293, and then UFC 312, which is just gone. So Sydney and Perth really look to be the two power players at bringing this event down under. That could change. Maybe it goes to Melbourne, but if I had to put my money on it, I think either Sydney or Perth is where it's looking likely at this stage. When, I don't know. I imagine, well, David Feldman's put here, details will be announced soon. So in the coming month or so, I imagine there will be some updates on what to expect from this big move by the BKFC. Now, what I want to also look at is some potential Australian fighters that could be featuring on this card or be signed by the BKFC organization. Now, these are the ones that I've come up with. Obviously, one of them is already, I believe, signed. But these are the ones that I think would make a great addition to BKFC, just from their purely on their fighting style across boxing and MMA. I think these guys would make a great fit in the bare knuckle arena. So the first one is Hayes the Huntsman. Hayes Hepe is his name. Hayes the Huntsman on Instagram. This dude, if you haven't seen him fight before, whether it be boxing or bare knuckle, he is an absolute monster. He is a guy who I think has great marketability as well. Obviously, the proud Māori heritage and everything else, and puts that on display. When he comes out, I mean, if that doesn't get you, that doesn't get the hairs on your skin, on your arms or whatever, getting put up, then I don't know what will, because that is some tribal, medieval type stuff. He's got the bones and around him, and he just looks like an absolute machine. And he fights like a machine. I'll show you some highlights. He does have some highlights. This is his bare knuckle one, I believe in England. Just a monster. An absolute machine. He's about 125, 130 kilos, but moves fast, is strong. I mean, this is one of his highlights from boxing. Bang. He's very, very good. I think he makes a very fun fighter out of this heavyweight division. The heavyweight division in the BKFC is actually really interesting. Obviously, Ben Rothwell just won the BKFC heavyweight title, knocking out Mick Terrell. There was potential talks of Mark Hunt last year. I don't think that will ever come to fruition, but he has posted this saying, to finish what was an amazing year on a high, I will be making my bare knuckle debut at BKFC Italy first event in April of 2025. So whether this happens or not, it remains to be seen. But I mean, this was posted late December, so I think it's probably a good chance. He was with Connor for that massive card. I think in Marbella, Spain. So he's followed by Connor and his manager Gabriel. This man right here, he's the one looking after Mick Terrell and a few other bare knuckle fighters. So it would make all the sense in the world that Hayes will be stepping in the bare knuckle arena. But just a really, I think, a really marketable guy in the heavyweight division. A real humble, nice man, but also just a savage and a beast when it comes. Yeah, I mean, who's stepping in the ring to fight that guy? I don't think many people are. And if you are, then good luck to you. So he's definitely one who I think would make a great addition to this BKFC Australia card. No doubt about it. He would definitely put bums in seats. The next one is this man, Isaac Hardman. I think, nothing's really been happening from him for a little while. I think he fought at the end of 2023. But I, from memory, don't remember seeing him in a ring for some time. I think he'd make a fun addition. Obviously, he was quite a successful MMA fighter before going to boxing, and obviously went to boxing and cleaned up, won some belts, some regional titles, did quite well. But he is a man who I think would make a great addition to bare knuckle. Whether these guys want to do it or not, this is just my opinion. But I think Isaac would make a fun addition. He's good on the microphone. And he is a tough fighter. Loves to get in, have a crack, and he's never shy of a good scrap. This one won't play, unfortunately, but he is another one who I think would make a really good addition to the BKFC Australia roster. And then these two men in particular. I know it says Josh Kern on the tab, but these two men right here, Josh Kern and Dimps Gillies. If they're not fighting MMA, then they need to be in the bare knuckle fighting championship arena. These two guys had one of the most incredible fights of all time in the history of the Australian MMA scene. These guys put on an absolute war. Josh always turns up to finish. He doesn't turn up just to point fight. He is for a guy that sort of came into the game a bit later. He is a guy who really brings excitement to a lot of fights. Same thing with Dimps Gillies, forward in the featherweight title Grand Prix for Eternal at the back end of last year. I mean, just they got markability written all over them. I think these two, you could do a rematch in BKFC. That would be awesome. I mean, the fight they put on at Eternal might have been 2023 or 2022. I can't remember either one of those 2 years. You need to go back and look at it. If you haven't seen it or you're not familiar, please go and look this fight up. I think you can find it on YouTube or UFC Fight Pass, one of the two. But these guys are two absolute savages. Good stand-up fighters. They love that's what this whole fight was, and that's what this fight really encapsulated was. Well, maybe that was it there. Eternal 65. That might have been it. But yeah, Dimps Gillies and Josh Kern are two men who I definitely want to see in the BKFC arena. I think they've got a lot of potential, to become big stars in the organization as well. Obviously, we don't have that many stars, Australian bare knuckle fighting championship stars. I think Beck Rawlings is there at the moment, or Rodriguez, I think a new last name is. But for these two guys, I think these two guys could definitely bring a lot of excitement, a lot of eyeballs to a BKFC event here in Australia. A few other names, guys like Luke Jackson. I think he's put his hand up. I don't know if you can see it on this post, but he has put his hand up to step in the BKFC arena. I think anyone who's really sort of on that cusp of, a high-level MMA fighter, a high-level boxer, but sort of wants a change. I think, but what BKFC are doing is incredibly impressive, and I think they've become they've put it here, the fastest-growing combat sport promotion in the world, and I think that's 100% true. I don't think they're just blowing smoke up their ass. I think they really are stepping up as the number 2 to the UFC, and to see what they did in Philadelphia the other week was just incredible for a combat sports promotion, not named the UFC, to do what they did and sell out that arena was incredible. Just flawless stuff. So when you look at the PFL and they're struggling to bring in numbers and struggling to sell tickets, and the prize is going now from 1 million to 500,000 per year, and all these sort of changes, and guys are not getting fights and everything else. The BKFC are pumping out shows nearly every weekend, and now they're going global. And the PFL was meant to be coming to Australia. I was told the PFL was coming to Australia 2024, then that changed to 2025. That has now been changed to 2027. So this whole global expansion thing that the PFL's talked about, I don't know if it's actually going to happen, like they say it is going to. But yeah, I mean, look at the stars they had on this card back in Philadelphia. Obviously, heavyweight title fight, Beck Rawlings. Some really good names on this card, and fun fights. Jeremy Stevens, Eddie Alvarez. So, what the BKFC organization is doing is incredible. So, it is definitely one that I want to see. A lot of those names get featured on an Australian card, whether it be here, Sydney, Perth, wherever. I think those are your two destinations. I think that's pretty much what you can guarantee at this stage, from what I've heard. But those names are some names I would love to see on a bare knuckle fighting championship card that comes to Australia later this year, I imagine. It's a big change for Australian combat sports, because if you're a young fighter growing up and all you know is boxing or MMA, there's also another route. It may not be the most enticing for young fighters and parents wanting to get their kids into it. I understand that, but it is definitely a different avenue in a sport where MMA is so cutthroat. On these local scenes, guys are still working. They're not making enough money to pay bills every week. It's a side thing where if you're a high level MMA fighter or a high level boxer and you can't quite crack the big time, you might have a successful career in BKFC. And that's not a knock on you. That's just, you might have a better style to suit bare knuckle. You never know. Look at a great example is Mike Perry. He couldn't crack the top 15 in the UFC, and look what he's done in BKFC. Fought Jake Paul, made millions of dollars, and supported his family. So that is what it's about. So it's definitely a game changer for the Australian combat sports future in general. That is for sure. Let me know what you think of this move from the BKFC and their expansion here in Australia. I'd love to know your thoughts, guys. Let me know any fighters that I haven't mentioned that you would like to see involved, if there are any that you know of that would be interested, or some big names that you think could feature in a BKFC card. Let me know and drop it in the comments. But yeah, big news and very, very interesting stuff. Really looking forward to this. I think it's a big move, and I'll be interested to see how it all unfolds over the coming weeks and months. But for me, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for all the support in Sydney last weekend and last week. It meant a lot to me. So until then, guys, if you could like and subscribe and do that sort of stuff, it helps us out a ton. But until the next video, I will see you all then.